Hello, and welcome to this MegaJoy presentation of the Trinity model. This is the 56th video in our series, in our productions. And today we're going to be doing the third of a four-part series, which is going to be dealing with the entire curriculum. It's really a concise version of theology, explained in very clear, understandable, and concise format. And that being the purpose of the Trinity model, is to make these concepts understandable and applicable. And so we're going to be calling today's video, Understanding Natural Law. Now, in the previous two videos in this series, we have dealt with human law and divine law. And so just a quick synopsis on that. Because this does kind of build the whole thing as a complete, curriculum, a complete understanding with very basic concepts. And it's just a way of tying those concepts together in a way that makes it easily understood and easily applied. And so, in human law, that basically is our understanding, okay? It's our understanding of truth. So it's our entire intellectual, our intelligence, our knowledge, facts, all of those cognitive concepts that are involved in the head. And then when we come to divine law deals with the heart. That's the ontological interpretation of trust. Okay, so am I trustworthy? And so when we talked about divine law, we talked about the original philosophers, truth, goodness, and beauty. We talked about the Holy Trinity, and we talked about those kinds of things. Again, it's the interaction with others. Okay. Now, today we're going to be really looking at human law and natural law, mostly natural law. But we cannot totally separate the two. Human law, both human and divine law, are internal. Okay, so human law is as part of our ontological makeup. Divine law, our heart, is part of our ontological makeup. And so these are the two ontological components of the human soul. But there are two economies that these two ontological components play out in. And so our head, our human law, our understanding of truth plays out in natural law. So human law, truth, our understanding of truth is inside us. Of course, the application of truth is outside of us, and that would be in natural law. And this would be where power is. And so today we're going to be focused on that, but we need to keep in mind what the interaction is. So the interaction is between our understanding and its application into natural law. Now, these are all of the quantitative things in existence. This is, for all intents and purposes, reality. Reality as we can understand it or perceive it or know it or as it exists. To whatever degree our understanding represents reality, that's what's going on here. Our understanding and our application. So it's all of those quantitative aspects. And so there are things that are involved in that. So this is not strictly a theological presentation. Theological is half of it, but then the other half of it is human and natural. And so you cannot divorce the two without coming into some serious inadequacies in your understanding and application. And so the purpose of these four videos, the curriculum on theology that we're putting together, is a holistic approach. So we're teaching whole to part. And so we can't get away from some of the psychological and learning theory terminology. Again, these are not things that are not understandable. They are not knowable. Okay, so like even Einstein, came up with E equals mc squared. Oh my gosh, Well, the man spent 50 years on numerous chalkboards working out his mathematics. And we're not all going to understand everything that went on with that. But his E equals MC squared. If you have basic algebra, an understanding, and you took a basic physics course in high school, you can understand the concept of that equation. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Okay? And, of course, I can't even understand what the speed of light, is whatever exponent is. Okay? But I understand the concept. How much energy can we get out of a single atom? Okay? That's understandable to me. And if you have a valid driver's license, it is understandable to you. And if you have a valid driver's license, you can fully comprehend this theological presentation because it's going to be put in such visual and such intellectually understandable terminology. And so with a little bit of focus and actually an earnest desire to understand your world and interpersonal relationships, there ought to be sufficient motivation for that, to spend the necessary 2 hours to master this information that is going to be the most applicable, the most beneficial in your entire life. And I purport for eternity. So give it the 2 hours and just come in with an open mind and an open heart. I do have to put this in there, as we're going to see in a few minutes, how things get separated and how people will either cancel you because you don't have the right authority or you don't know what you're talking about. Those are the only 2 ways you get canceled. Okay? But we're not having a dialogue if somebody's canceled. So enough on that. Let's get back to our message here. And so it really is about focus. And so we're going to talk about things, not too much about learning theory. We are going to delve a little bit into statistics today. Just not statistical analysis, but just the conceptual understanding of the bell-shaped curve. Okay, so we're not going to do any chi-square test or anything like that. We're just going to talk about the normal distribution. The normal distribution of the population and the normal distribution of things like intelligence and emotion. And again, basic concepts. That's just really basic concepts. But they are applicable in theology. You cannot divorce learning theory, psychology, philosophy. You cannot totally divorce it from any discussion of theology. Now, you can talk about components, but you're not talking about the whole if you're not including those components. And so we're not having some PhD level discussion of these concepts. We are having the basic understanding, which again, if you have a driver's license, you are well equipped to understand these things. So it behooves you, more than that, I'm doing this because I want to help the world. And if we got some of this understanding out there, oh my gosh. And here's the thing. Yes, it's theological. I personally don't care. I understand as a Christian I care about every soul. I get that. But I don't care if you're an atheist or agnostic or have no idea or don't want to know. It doesn't matter. This is how it works. Every time, all the time. There are no discrepancies here. This is 100% of the understanding you need to have in all arenas. So there are the 4 laws that we covered in human law. That's part of human law, is understanding the 4 laws and the nature of each one. The second part of that was understanding the human soul, which again we talked about when we talked about divine law. And the human soul consists of a head, a heart, and a body. Again, not rocket science. Head, heart, body. That's your soul. And then you got the 3, and then you're an agent. You're an agent in natural law, and you're also an agent in interpersonal interactions, which we will get to in the next video. So you got your head, how it interacts in natural law, and you got your heart, and how it interacts in interpersonal law. And that's all there is to it. And if you just have those concepts in mind, you have a complete understanding of human law. And today, at the end of the next 20 minutes, you will have a complete understanding of natural law. Okay, so let's do it. I want to make sure I got these points covered. Again, we are going to do the math thing. Just 2 points here. One is I did mention a little bit about focus, and that's what this is about, focus. And as this presentation goes on, we're going to point out how focus can get diffused. Okay, so it's not clear into focus, and there are agents out there, and there are agents inside of you that are keeping you from focus. And so the main focus is you have to get focused. You have to learn the difference between your head and your heart. Okay, what you feel may not be what you believe. And what you feel or what you believe may not be true. So let's just get real and let's pursue it. So along those lines, if something is true, then we should learn how to apply it. If it's true, we should investigate it, whether it's a good truth or a bad truth. If it pertains to truth, then it is worthy of pursuing that truth. Now, if it is not true, if someone is purporting something that is not true, then we shouldn't focus and spend our energy on what's true. We should spend our energy on the person purporting untruth. So if it's true, it's under the heading of faith. And faith is what saves you. If it's untrue, then it's a personal issue and not a natural law or human law issue. If it's untrue, it is not part of human law or natural law. If it's untrue, it's part of some human heart. Okay? And so, we're going to do that, and that is the faith thing. So now I'll put up some slides. Just one more point here about divine law. And again, going back to the fact that it doesn't really matter. When I say it doesn't matter to me, let's just say it doesn't matter. Whether you are agnostic, atheist, believer. Divine law, if you don't like the word divine, or we're talking about God and all that stuff, let's just talk about this as life force. We have a life force. So whatever your conception of that is, that would be in our discussion of divine law. There is a life force. It came from somewhere and it goes to somewhere. And that point cannot be argued. And so there's a category for it. That's your heart, your emotions. Your emotions are different from your beliefs. There are no counterexamples. Okay, so let's turn our board around and get to the meat of our discussion. Okay, so now, and this is only recently that this presentation has become clear to me, focused for me, and that is how to deal with the head and the heart in a single kind of a concept. Okay, and so because you'll have a bell-shaped curve on intelligence, and you have a bell-shaped curve on emotional quotient, but how to combine them, and so. It really seems that it's when those two are combined, a high intelligent quotient, okay, aptitude if you will, and a high emotional quotient, or aptitude, when those combine, when you have both, okay, that's when you can get to the peak of your performance, okay, as an individual or as a society. And again, what we're talking about here, these will represent both the individual. Okay, so you can think about this as an individual where they are in this. Okay, or you can think about it as the culture at large. And here's the thing: whether it's macro, okay, or micro. So micro being the individual, or macro, being one country fighting another country in a war, the concepts are all the same in dealing with the four laws and human nature. Those are all, they're identical. So if you understand the four laws, and you understand how the human soul relates to each part of the four laws, then that's the framework upon which you can be the most focused and understanding clearly of what is going on. So let's just look at the positive part here, okay? And so our IQ, our head, okay, our noggin, okay, our intelligence, deals with truth as it interacts with power. Okay, so today is power. Today is natural law. So we understand our understanding of truth as it applies to power, as it applies to natural law. So how well does our understanding match up with what's really, really true? Okay? And so, the greater we have that understanding, the greater we are able to reason. Okay? So think of our understanding of truth as ontological, with being kind of the human component. You know how I do the two laws a lot of times, human and natural. So think of the truth, again, that is our ontological understanding of truth, that's human law, as it plays out into power, which is natural law. And that's what we're dealing with today, is natural law. Okay? So it's our application of natural law, of truth into natural law. And to the extent, the greater extent that our understanding is accurate, the greater our understanding matches actual truth, okay, that gives us a greater capacity to reason. Okay, whether we're reasoning as an individual or we're reasoning as a collective society. It's our reasoning capacity as it plays out in socialization. So these are kind of politics down here, okay? Who gets what and that kind of stuff. And that's why we're talking about natural law today. Because as we're going to see, this is how it plays out. And oh, by the way, since we're talking about micro and macro, the way it plays out in the greater world is identical to the way it plays out in marital relationships. Okay? So you do have the males and the females. Okay? And there are numerous studies, and we're not going to get into everything, but there is a difference between boys and girls. And a lot of that has to do with the way they approach life and their philosophy. And time and again, you'll see men tend to approach life through the lens of understanding, okay? Whereas women tend to, again, these are tendencies, we're not, bigots or racist or sexist or anything like that. But women tend to view the world through the lens of the heart, okay? And that is why, and I'll just put a plug in for God here, that is why God created them male and female. That's why God created marriage. That's why marriage is a covenant relationship. Okay? Because if you're looking at coming in with a lot of really good knowledge about truth, and you're coming in as how to apply it, now keep in mind there are two economies. One is how does truth play out in natural law, and the other is how does the heart, how does your ego, how does that play out, your divine nature, your soul, if you will, or your spirit, let's call it spirit, not soul, let's call it spirit. How does your spirit play out in interpersonal relationships? And as further proof, I would ask every class that I taught, I wouldn't ask them, I would just make a statement. I believe that most pain and most pleasure in life comes through relationship with other people. And I never had any dissension in that statement. So, there are the two components, IQ and EQ. And when you consider both as optimally as you can, that's when you're going to have your peak performance in interactions with natural law and how that relates to, because let's face it, everything is an interaction. with your head, you have what you believe and you bring it into the natural law. And of course, you'll get some feedback from natural law. And in your heart, you will bring how you feel, what you believe about relationships with people, what your state of your ego is. You will bring that into any interaction with another person. And of course, there will probably be some feedback. And so, there are the two interactions. There are the two ontological natures, head, heart, and there are the two economic realities, natural law and relationship, eternal law. Okay? So those are the four laws, and these are the two ways that we relate to those four laws. So we've talked about the power thing, we've talked about our faith, if you will. Now getting into our hope domain a little bit, our divine law, our heart, if you will, and all of those things that go with it. And we have countless videos that address these issues in a deeper level. But what we are going to accomplish in 2 hours' time is an absolute, complete curriculum in theology that covers everything from learning to psychology, philosophy, education, theology. One complete, concise understanding of the four laws, the makeup of the human soul as it interacts among the four laws. As concise and complete a curriculum as exists in the world. Now, let's look at the emotional quotient just a little bit. Keep in mind, the emotions now, they're dealing with the divine law, is your trust level. Again, being trustworthy, which you have control over. You know, do you walk what you talk and talk what you walk? If you do, then you're trustworthy. Okay? As it plays out in authority. Authority being in the economy, and so trustworthy. So what do I bring into the economy? And then how do I perceive what's coming from the emotional economy? Okay? The authorities. Okay? You know, the teachers and parents and policemen and bosses. But when you're a parent, you know, you're the big dog then. So again, hopefully you're trustworthy. And so, just as your emotional quotient gets a little higher, you are a more rational being. Okay? So, if the best thing that could be said about you in terms of your ontological nature is if you are rational and reasonable, you know what? You're a pretty good person. All right. And then there is also the personal growth that you can experience through your interaction with the eternal law or relationship law, which we will explore next time. So this is kind of a version here of the best of what's going on.